In today's episode of the Platform Presents podcast, I have an interesting guest here with me today. I'm with Gaurav Suman. He's sailing over as the director of product marketing at HiveMQ. And basically, they're at a very interesting industry. They're basically looking into reliable data movement for connected devices. And today we want to really deep dive into what it actually means, who is benefiting most from the services, and also obviously how Gaurav is thinking about growth for the product and the company. So appreciate, Gaurav, you joining us for the Platform Present show today. Welcome.
Thank you, Lucas. Very, very excited to be here.
Of course, yeah. So maybe give us a 360 overview first. What is IFMQ all about?
Yeah, sure. So, in short, HiveMQ is an enterprise MQTT broker. Now, that's the technical name for what we do.
Mm-hmm.
But a better answer, perhaps, is that we are a software which helps things talk to each other.
Mm-hmm.
So, let me zoom into this a little bit. So, when we think about humans interacting with the internet, so you and I are trying to go onto a website, say google.com, we open up a machine, we open up an application, and then from that application, we try and access a server on the other end. Now, this is all a process. There are multiple steps you take to get to a point where you can access a resource. That's how internet for humans is meant to work. So there are different protocols. Some of our listeners here might have heard about HTTP, etc. That's what it takes to get the internet for humans working. When things are talking to each other, they can obviously spare themselves, this many of the pleasantries here. Things are involved in interacting with each other for certain business objectives. So, for example, if you have, say, a Nest doorbell, and the doorbell is now supposed to talk to wireless speakers inside your house. So these are things talking to each other. It's still dependent on the internet. These devices are having to access each other's resources, talk to each other, exchange data. But all of that is happening on the Internet of Things. So that's the distinction here between Internet as we know it for humans or of humans and Internet of Things. Now, Internet of Things has got its own set of protocols, its own set of specifications, and one de facto specification is called MQTT. This was developed many years ago, but our company has uh, zeroed in on MQTT as the platform technology, as the technology of choice to build an IoT platform. So we take this to our customers, and our customers are able to build solutions on top of this. And the solutions vary from, connected sleep apnea machines to connected cars. Um, in some cases, also some back-end processes can talk to each other using that same technology. So it's a huge variety across multiple verticals.
Mm-hmm. And you alluded to a couple of use cases there. What types of organizations, what types of companies, leverage the platform at the moment? Is that in a certain industry typically? Is that across industries? Do the organizations have to have a certain size? Maybe give us a bit of sort of an understanding who benefits most from
Sure.
I think it.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's interesting is we are, as a population, at about 7 or so billion people, as you know, uh, as an entity, the whole planet. The number of connected devices today is at about 14 billion. So, and I'm not talking cell phones, I'm not talking laptops, I am talking connected IoT devices. The projection is that in 3 years it's going to double, almost double, to about 27 billion. So we'll be about
Mm-hmm.
8 billion in population, or 8 point something billion, and almost 27 billion connected devices. So the rate of growth is massive. Now, that's happening not in one single industry. This is more of an experience which is extending into multiple industries. And I use the word experience pretty consciously here because when I'm speaking about experience, I'm not talking about developers and architects inside a business getting that experience. It's the end user who are getting that experience. So, from an industry perspective, one of our clients is a ride sharing or a car sharing application which is developed by the BMW group. And what's happening there, Lucas, is we help people who are leasing, or I should say renting their vehicles, get instant access to their vehicles. So imagine you walking closer to a car and the car unlocking, and you get in and you are authenticated. The car recognizes you, and you get on your trip and you move on to your next destination. Now you exit the car, you know the trip has ended, the system knows the trip has ended, and another user then comes in and just continues on. So we are impacting the end user,
Mhm.
but the technology in the back end, which is where all of this, Internet of Things communication needs to happen. That's what's influencing the experience. How easily does this happen? Interestingly, I mentioned these guys, and we have a case study published on our website. So I invite your listeners to check this out. Before using our technology, it used to take as long as 30 seconds to unlock the car. So imagine walking up to the car and having to wait 30 seconds before it unlocks. And
Mhm.
imagine that happening, for example, here in Canada, where I am, where temperatures could hit, minus 30 Celsius, and you having to wait before the car opens. Not a pleasant experience. So I'm talking about that experience
Yep.
from that perspective. The other end of the experience here is the people inside the organization who are building such solutions. Now, there is always a way to solve a problem, right? You could throw more resources at it. You could throw more computing power, bring in cloud technology. I mean, yes, there's always a way to solve a problem, but the value we bring in is how easy can we make it for you to build a solution which can be long lasting, which can make sure it's flexible enough for you to bring in more functionality. It does not lock you in. That's another interesting aspect where companies are evaluating, can we make sure that we are using technology which is helping us define the context in which we need to operate. There's a lot of regulated industries, etc. So I spoke about automotive as one industry, but on the other end, we are helping customers who have to keep their data regionally bound, and we have customers in Europe, in Americas. So geographically speaking, we are spread far and wide, and at the
Mhm.
same time between connected cars and generally speaking, a bunch of connected devices use cases we are serving across multiple verticals.
Very cool. Now, how do these organizations learn about HiveMQ? Like, what is their journey like? Or in other words, what is sort of the client acquisition channels that you guys leverage?
So we have been in business a little over 10 years now,
Mhm.
Lucas. And over these 10 years, there's a there's a lot of community support that we have done. And if anybody goes on our website, they'll see that we have a lot of education through videos, through templates we are providing to developers. Um, Interestingly, a lot of university students and hobbyists also use our resources to learn about MQTT as a technology and implement beginner level projects. Now, it does not stop at education alone. We want to make sure people get a taste of the technology. So we can speak all that we want to about MQTT being fast, lightweight, easy to use. But then how about we give them a flavor of it? And we do that on multiple levels. First, we have a public MQTT broker. An MQTT broker, I think I'm using that term for the first time here in this conversation. A broker essentially means when multiple different endpoints or things have to talk to each other, you need something in between which can help navigate that traffic around. That's what we do. We are an MQTT broker at the heart of our platform. So when um, let's say again you, Lucas, in your spare time want to build an IoT project at your home, right? You want to get an alert as soon as your camera spots, I don't know, a cat running through your backyard, that particular cat that you don't like that much. That kind of a project, all it needs is a lightweight MQTT broker, and we have a URL on our website. People can go there. If I log in now, I'll see, I'm sure, 30, 40,000 devices connected now. It comes with no obligations. You don't have to provide your email address, nothing. We know people want to get this thing up and running and then just move on. Now, obviously, that leaves a footprint on their minds, and they know there's somebody out there that's giving them that technology um, for free and allowing them to use MQTT technology to build an IoT solution. Now, that's for hobbyists. Now, the enterprise users obviously want something more stable, something more defined, something secure in production, of course, but then when you're trying to sample it, we give them a community edition, which they can try, and it's forever free. Plus, there are evaluation editions, and then as they are doing it, we want to make sure they are getting a good sense of how far they can, push that technology. So our customer success teams, our online community is available for people to ask those questions, and we keep making sure that they are well supported as they're trying to experiment with that technology. So just to quickly go back and accurately, more particularly rather answer your question around how people find us, our organic footprint is very impressive. I mean, I personally feel that it's very impressive. Um, as we grow, much of this inbound motion has to transition into outbound also. So we are continuing to create more industry specific, vertical specific stories and making sure that people are able to see us with with a different context in mind. So if they're using, say, a particular hyperscale cloud technology like AWS, like Azure, etc., so they're able to see how the interwork is going to be and where is it that we can help them in their cloud journey and things along those lines.
Mm-hmm. Very good. No, I guess, I mean, you're expressing very clearly what you guys are doing. That's super, super great because it's obviously a complex topic, but you're making it very easy to understand. So I appreciate that for the listeners. So one thing that I'm wondering is you mentioned community, you mentioned self-exploration in the DIY context, and then obviously enterprise use cases. What role do you as a product marketer attribute to the website? Like, how do you think about the website? What role does it play in their journey of, getting to know HiveMQ and getting started?
So the website is our most important salesperson. That's how I feel about it. I mean, in general, our web footprint is is uh, is anchored on our website. I would say the website, if you go in there, is full of information. It's organized around learning. It's organized around particular solutions. Now, as we grow as a team, and something perhaps your listeners would be interested by is how we are growing as a business. So I might be a little off by the numbers here, but ballpark, about 1 year ago we were at, I think, about 35 employees,
Mm-hmm.
and now we are at about 120 employees, and we are
Mm-hmm.
growing in all functions. We are expanding our product team, our marketing team. I joined HiveMQ late last year, and my remit is to make sure our product is better positioned, better understood in different contexts. We are also building specifically an industry practice, and we have people already joining us to specifically speak to particular industry verticals. For example, Internet of Things. It's such a broad topic, as I mentioned to you. 27 billion devices connected. Then we have to add a certain industry context to it. So we are making sure that when people are coming in and talking about industrial automation, then we are able to speak to exactly their needs. The capital we have built on the horizontal is translated well into the particular vertical adoption that needs to happen. Our growth on the demand gen side is currently obviously focused on a lot of content marketing, but as we grow, we are bringing in intent and also ABM programs to make sure we are able to reach particular verticals of our focus. So I hope that answers.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. I mean, what's quite interesting, product marketers we have on the show, sometimes they work very closely with the demand gen team. Sometimes they're a little bit more apart. Like, how do you personally, think about the website when it comes to its strength and it maybe where there's room for improvement? How do you, what would you consider sort of a strength of the website versus where do you see maybe even further room for development?
Oh yeah, absolutely. In fact, great timing for this conversation because only a few weeks ago, all of our expanded marketing team got together, and we brainstormed on what's working and what we feel should be better. And interestingly, my opinion was that the website brings me, and people were confused by the term I used, but I said the website brings me peace, as in I'm there, nothing is moving around too much. There's little dynamic elements, but I can find the answer. I know where to go if I want to learn about MQTT. I want to learn about a particular area. It's all in there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, everything has to sort of evolve over time and get better.
Mm-hmm.
There's many elements of our website which can use work around being more dynamic. A little content organization also is in order. So you'll see all of that happening in the next little while here. But our focus will continue to be on making sure we are providing great, unbiased, actionable content. Our focus on education and making sure people are able to see MQTT as a technology for what it is and what it can be for them is also well explained on the website. So it's organizing, it's perhaps making it more dynamic, and then there will be some evolution you will see around industry specific sections and areas on the website. That's net where we are headed with this, Lucas.
Very cool. No, that gives a very good understanding. Appreciate also sort of the little story from behind the scenes. So you guys were coming together there. Very cool. Let's switch gears a little bit. I'm curious to learn more about your journey as a product marketer. So there is so much content out there when it comes to product marketing, right? There is resources, books, Slack communities popping up everywhere. Like, how do you personally like to educate yourself when it comes to product marketing? What's your go-to places, with all the noise out there, let's say?
I rely a lot on people's recommendations. So when I listen to podcasts on platforms like yours, for example, or I speak with colleagues, if somebody recommends an article or a book, I know that it's worth giving it a shot. I mean, again, depending on who the people are, but just because you are already in a conversation with somebody and they bring something up in a certain context, I want to learn more about it. I want to read more about it. In our company, for example, here at HiveMQ, there's a great culture of sharing what you're reading. On Slack, we have a channel which is called "What to Read Next," where somebody will read something and they will bring in elements of what they learned. An example, Lucas, which I've been sharing quite a bit with people lately, is a book called "The Philosophy of Software Design." Mm-hmm. Now, think about it, right? Software design and philosophy. I mean, where's the connection? So I am by education an electronics and communication engineer. I never learned software in school. And then over time, I did my work in unified communication in other areas, but I never went anywhere close to software. So when I went into software technology, which has been about 6 years now, it was challenging for me to make sense of how developers think and how software engineers think. And I kid you not, it's taken this while for me to finally find a text which very simply begins to explain the philosophy of a software architect, right? How are they thinking about the world and their problems? How do they feel so enabled to solve anything you throw at them? So it's interesting, how that happens. So to answer your question, I think product marketing is influenced by everything you read, everything you see. If I pick up a piece of Nat Geo and the Nat Geo magazine has a chart on how the temperatures are rising across the globe in a certain pattern, you are able to see that and also bring it back to say, here's how, for example, user adoption should be represented in your work and so on and so forth. One book I recently have been spending time sort of revisiting is by April Dunford called Obviously Awesome, and that's an all-time favorite for many product marketers. It does a great job explaining positioning and how, if not done right, your users might think of you as a completely different product than what you believe you are or what you were going to market to sell. So yeah, that's
very cool.
My answer.
Very awesome. If there would be no boundaries in tech, right? So everything is possible. What's the one thing that you would fix for your role today?
One thing I would fix in product marketing. Hard to say, Lucas, but I would say the ability for product marketing to describe what it does, that can be done better. I don't know what the answer might be. One of my former bosses, I've heard from them describing that everybody knows that you're doing something, but it's hard for them to describe where is it that you add value. So it's that's the one element I can think of. But otherwise, I know this is just a fascinating intersection of technology. There's obviously your company's success depends on how you are telling to the world what you do and why that matters. Plus, where do you want to go next? It's just amazing the amount of exposure you get and the amount of impact you can have. But it's just in the vocabulary of all of your colleagues, it may not be as clear.
No, but I mean, it's very interesting because actually a lot of product marketers on the show mentioning something very similar, that there is this sort of the spectrum that they're acting between product and marketing, and interpretation can be very different from company to company. Very cool. Last question. If today we're going back, right, we're doing a bit of time travel, we go travel. We go back to the days of Berlin Institute of Technology and Science, right? You're heading out of formal education into the world of business. What's the one advice you give yourself for your journey?
Um, yeah, I would say learn how to focus, and that's because it's easy to to pursue multiple interests, pursue multiple uh, multiple technologies, paths, etc. But you need to be able to make sure that at one point you are able to commit yourself almost exclusively. I mean, of course, you don't want to lose the sight of the rest of the world, but make sure you're able to focus, or at least train yourself to focus more and more, because I think that becomes one asset that is irreplaceable over time. Yeah, that's what I would say, Lucas. Focus.
Very cool, Gaurav. I really appreciate you took the time with us today to be a guest on Pathon Presents. I want to give you the very last word. If somebody would be forgetting all that we discussed about FMQ, what's the one thing they should remember?
Well, I would say HiveMQ, um, when things want to talk to each other, then we make sure that the signal is clean and the lines are clear. And that's what we do as a business.
Very good. Very good. Thanks a lot for being a guest on Pathon Presents.
Sure. Thank you, Lucas.